All right, good day, everybody. This is Z Marcel Patu, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. We're broadcasting on February 19th, 2021. Hope all is well with you out there. You're staying safe and positive, and things are doing good in your world. We have a full show for you today. We are going to go into the Gridiron Blitz and break down all of the news in the NFL. There was a major trade with a former starting quarterback. Atlanta Falcons are making some offseason moves and a major free agent is continuing his tour. We'll transition into Beanball and discuss the Major League Baseball, particularly the Fernando Tatis deal, and I'll say legendary and another sport guy finally retiring from baseball. I have some thoughts on that. Transition to the original free kick. We'll break down some news with Atlanta United. Technical state of Georgia athletics. We have some exclusive interviews with some Georgia State head coaches that you will hear on this show. And finally, miscellaneous department. We'll get into the NBA All-Star game, and the Australian Open finals are set. So I have some thoughts and predictions on that. As always, if you want to follow through on everything that we're doing, go to the mothership, to sportsinquirer.net. Premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the Sports Inquirer or Sports Inquirer, all one word. Just do a search and you'll find us. And finally, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, really wherever you listen to your audio content and programming. Things are going well here in Atlanta, Georgia. We've had a cold spell, not as much as some other states in the U.S. And if you're listening to us in pockets of the country, especially in Texas, where the weather has been really bad and dealing with some power outages and water issues, and prayers to you. Hope all is going to work out there for you. But it's just been with between the pandemic and now this unseasonably cold weather in certain parts of the country, particularly the Southwest and in Texas, causing some major issues. It's just been a really rough year for many of us. But we're going to make it through, and hopefully that just happens for you. But we'll transition, get right to the sports with the Gridiron Blitz. And my thoughts in the NFL. The trade is, I don't think it's official yet, but it has been announced that Carson Wentz of the Philadelphia Eagles will be traded to the Indianapolis Colts for a third round pick and a second round conditional pick that may turn into a first rounder. I think it's a big win for the Indianapolis Colts. We looked at last season, were able to make the postseason with Phillip Rivers, a player that who's retired by now, and just was average at best. Yet you look at the Colts, a really good rushing attack behind Jonathan Taylor and one of the top 5 or 6 offensive lines. You look at defensively, they were ranked in the top 2 or 3 in many statistics. So you look at the Colts, and they had a really strong team. All they needed is maybe some improved quarterback play, and they could have been a division winner and made some even bigger steps for them. You reunite Carson Wentz, whose time in Philadelphia it had to come to an end. When you have him expressing his displeasure, it just from the very beginning with him. What really happened with Wentz, unfortunately, is he came onto the team, had a really good 12 games for them, was playing at an MVP level. We all know what happened since then. Had a torn ACL at the Rams. I was watching that contest live, and when he was diving for the end zone, and he got hit in the knee, that didn't look good. Then you see Nick Foles go into the starting lineup, help lead the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. To have statues in front of the stadium of Foles, they keep his locker room or keep his locker intact during the entire run, even when he's not playing. Carson Wentz is seeing all this, and it just was not working out for him. Now, to be fair, Wentz underperformed this year. Most turnovers by a quarterback this year, and he didn't even start all 16 games. Because you remember the last 4 games, they went to Jalen Hurts. But he's had injury issues, unable to stay on the field. Even the one playoff game, he was able to get in against Seattle. Remember, got hit in the back and got injured. Eagles ultimately lost that contest to Seattle. So he has had a hard time staying on the field consistently outside of his rookie year. And this year he was healthy, but he was underperforming. So between underperformance and injuries, outside that rookie year, he's has been unable to complete an entire season. So the time for him was gone. Now he gets a really good spot in Indianapolis because remember, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts is Frank Reich. He was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles during that Super Bowl run and in that same regular season when Wentz had the best run of his career. So he goes into Indianapolis. No, there's no competition there. He's going to be the starter. The Colts have money, so they were able to take on the actually they were able to take on the contract, even though the Eagles. We'll get to the Philadelphia side. They well, look at Philadelphia right now because it does tie into everything. I think it's an okay move for the Eagles. Here's the thing: for Carson Wentz, who you traded a lot for just to pick him up, you only get 2 draft picks and not even a first rounder. And the first rounder is contingent on Wentz playing 70% of the snaps and the Colts being a playoff team. That's no guarantee. So you're going to end up with two second day picks, second and third rounder, for a guy that should have been your franchise player. That's not the best haul. And furthermore, you're really banking on Jalen Hurts being your starting quarterback, or even reports saying they want to bring in another quarterback to create competition. I just don't understand that side of things. If you wanted competition, just bring Wentz back. Jalen Hurts make an open competition, see who wins that, and then whoever loses, maybe you can trade. And you still, if Hurts end up being the winning quarterback in that competition, you could have made this trade at some point with another team. Because I think for a starting quarterback, and I know people look at his salary and look at it and say it's really high, it's not that bad. But for a starting quarterback in the NFL and a guy that we've seen play at an MVP level, granted it was for half of a regular season, it's still there. He's not even 30 yet. You only have to give up 2 draft picks for him. I mean, that's very big for the Colts. But then for the Eagles, as I said, you didn't really get too much compensation for it. Now, it's up to Howie Rosenberg, the general manager of the team. They drafted Hurts in the second round last year. You could tell that Hurts was inserted into the starting lineup for by management. Ultimately, Doug Peterson lost his job with the Eagles, a Super Bowl winning head coach, because of this issue. So it really is on Rosenberg, the general manager. He better hopes it works out with Hurts, because if it doesn't, that's not a very good look, for the Eagles. So we'll see what happens as that goes on. We'll discuss this trade throughout the next few weeks as things progress and as more information comes along. The Atlanta Falcons have made some moves. They released safety Ricardo Allen and defensive end Allen Bailey. These moves are expected to save some salary cap space. Ricardo Allen, a professional, a really good player or a solid player for the Falcons the past few years. But I think you're just starting to see a new administration into the fold with the new head coach and Arthur Smith, and you're looking at other just entities. The new general manager. They're going to make some changes. They have to decrease. They're over the cap right now, and we're going to start seeing some guy, Keanu Neal. He's a free agent. He may not be back. You look at that offensive line, Alex Mack. He may not be on the team again. Outside, honestly, of I would say Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Grady Jarrett. I think everyone else on the roster is expendable one way or the other. Now, there are levels of that expendability. With that, like you don't think that like a Lindstrom or maybe some of the younger offensive linemen still on rookie deals are probably going to be released. But hypothetically, if they got a deal of interest, they'd be looked at. I said I think there are only 4, I would say, immovable players on the roster for the Falcons right now. So that would I'll say those 4. But outside of that, everyone is either a free agent or can be moved on from. And if you're a Falcons supporter or a fan, expect this to happen. But they really hope that with these moves, if Keanu Neal doesn't come back because he's a free agent, he may have outpriced himself with the Falcons. And also the release of Ricardo Allen, you really don't have, and Kate Casey, he's out with the Achilles. He's a free agent as well. And you don't know if he's going to come back to the Falcons. Or if he does come back to Falcons, resigns, we don't know how well he'll be or how long he's going to take to recover from that. They have no safeties. And so in the first few rounds of the draft, they're not going to draft a safety in the top 4. They have a 4th overall pick as we speak right now. I don't think they're going to go that route. But they do need a safety, literally, just to field someone. And so maybe this opens up the door for Neal to come back. Maybe have some more money to spend on him. But we'll see what happens with the Falcons and all the moves that they continue to have. And speaking of moves, or a guy who's trying to make a move is J.J. Watt. He's a free agent, the three-time Defensive Player of the Year, formerly of the Houston Texans. He is making his rounds. Well, he's not really doing the traditional. When I think of free agency tours, I always think of like Reggie White. And I remember when he in the '90s, that was the first one I can recollect when he was going to Cleveland, going to Atlanta, and being wined and dined by all these teams. It's a little bit different way of that things are going on in 2021. But I guess there's mutual interest with the Cleveland Browns. Buffalo has expressed interest. Obviously, Green Bay. The connections are obviously he's a Wisconsin native. But I think the biggest thing with him, and he's kind of he's in a good spot where he's in a good and bad spot. I mean, what I mean by that is we know he's gonna go to a contender. A playoff team from last year is what I consider a contender, and but the only thing is some of these teams have money issues and they can't do it, or you would assume that they would be unable to do it. And so his market is limited in that way. What I mean by that, if the Jets offered him 4 years and $100 million, something crazy, I mean maybe he'd go to the Jets, or Jacksonville, teams that can offer that type of money, theoretically. But you would assume he's not going to go to Jacksonville or the Jets. Those teams are in major rebuilds. So you look at the market and you would think, okay, Green Bay, Cleveland, Buffalo, and some of those teams have more money to offer than others. But overall, I think he's in a decent spot of where he wants to sign. And now, if you're signing Watt, you have to question what you're going to get out of him. Now, if you look statistically, by Pro Football Focus and some other entities, he was still a top 10 defensive lineman in the NFL. So that's still good. Now, you're not going to get the guy that was Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL. Those days are probably past him. But I can see Watt being in a new environment, extra motivated. He's he's a veteran. He works really hard. He's going to be good in the locker room. You can get good. I don't know if you get double-digit sacks from him, but if he's a starter and he can play inside and outside, you can get 7 or 8 sacks from him. A lot of pressures, and a roster like Cleveland it'd be really good for him to go there. Put him opposite of Myles Garrett, who someone says is the best defensive lineman in the NFL, right? The outside lineman, inside is Aaron Donald from the Rams. But maybe the best defensive end in the NFL is Garrett. You put Watt in that same grouping, that could be very intriguing. Buffalo was in the AFC Championship game, so they're not too far away from being a Super Bowl team, and they're going to continue to improve with Josh Allen at quarterback. So they're already up in Green Bay. We already know they were in the NFC Championship game. Aaron Rodgers is still on the roster for another year. I mentioned the Wisconsin ties. He can start there immediately and be a big contributor. So there are some options for him of where he can go. And in Tampa, I don't think Tampa's if he wants to go to Tampa and take veteran minimum, that can possibly happen. But I think with Pierre Paul already there, you look at Shaq Barrett, who now Barrett wants to get he wants to get like $20 million a year. He's a free agent. He wants to get paid. So I mean, if he leaves, that might open up a spot for Watt. But I think if Tampa saying they're bringing everyone back, so even if they franchise him, you gotta figure they'll find a way to work that out. Sue, he's kind of he's a mercenary at this stage. He'll go where the money is, which is respectable. I'm not going to knock a player for doing that. But I said you put it all together, I don't know if there'll be room for him necessarily in Tampa. Now I said if you really want to take a major pay cut and go to the Bucks, and I mean the Bucks are the champs right now, to get Tom Brady at least for another year. They're a major contender. We'll see what happens with that move and where he goes. But that'll be very intriguing to keep track of over the next few weeks. All right, let's move on to baseball and Beanball portion of our show. 2 notes from there. Fernando Tatis Jr. signed his 14-year, $340 million deal with the Padres. I think it's a good move by both parties. For Tatis Jr., you buy out your arbitration years. You buy out because he wouldn't have been a free agent for another 4 years. I don't think people look at the deal and it's like, man, he signed for a long term. 4 of those 14 years would have been arbitration years where he would have been lower compensated and where he looks to be producing. And then he finally enters free agency. Now he would enter free agency in his mid-20s. So he'd be in a very nice spot to get that money. But he gets that money right now. Now, 14 years at that long term, I don't think that might be a little lengthy. for my liking if I were him, because I mean, average wise, he's not poor. I mean, when we talk about salaries and money when it comes to professional sports, for you that are listening and the majority of us, it's monopoly money. So when I say a guy's only making $10 or $20 million, you have some perspective on that relative to what their production is and in the market. You can say a guy is making 10 million or 20 million and he's underpaid. But perspective is important or needed here. Now, I said the amount of years for Tatis is a little much for me because I think he could have done a deal, bought out his free agency years, and still become a free agent at 28 or 29 and gone back into the market. But you can also say that, injuries, lack of production, he might not be able to see this much money again. Because right now he knows for the majority of his playing career, he has this amount of money coming in. So that's not is not the worst thing in the world. I think for the Padres, it's a good move as well. Some are criticizing the move, saying, "Oh, too much money, too many years." He's only played really a year and a half of baseball. We don't know what he's going to do in the future. Look, he's a special talent. If it all projects, he plays a premium position shortstop. He hits for power. He's very exciting. He's a box office attraction. He's already probably a top five player in the league right now. And as far as field players, pitchers are in another category for me, and it's very hard to compare pitchers and fielders. But I'll say for fielding positions, outside of I mean, Mike Trout's probably still the best guy. And then you have your other exceptions. But I'd say for right now, in his age range and what he's producing, or what he looks like to project to, I'd say he's a top five guy, in the league. And it's gonna be very interesting as well because two guys who are maybe in that top five or top 10 conversation have contracts that are coming up. Well, and then you saw the Mookie Betts deal, and he got paid big time. But you have Soto in Washington, and then Lindor with the Mets. And those guys, when you see their deals, they're going to get 300 plus million, probably for a lesser amount of years, and be even more of a financial strain on their teams when you look compare to this deal with the Padres. And for the Padres, look, are you as good as the Dodgers? No, the Dodgers are still the premier team, not only in the National League West, but not only the National League, but all baseball. They're defending champions of the world. So you're maybe not as good as them right now, but you still put yourself in a highly competitive position. You can still be a playoff team and still put yourself in a spot to be in the playoffs. And once you reach the playoffs, anything can happen. But it is interesting to see the Padres have the two highest paid people in all of baseball, all in the same infield, in the same side of the infield with Manny Machado with his $300+ million deal as well. But it's good for baseball too, because we've seen so many times these guys go to the major markets or really the major teams, and we know what they are: the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox, Cubs a little bit sprinkled in there, and they all go. All these teams they spend on the premium talent. But for him to be now, granted, he wasn't drafted by the Padres; it was part of a trade, probably the infamous Jamie Shields trade with the White Sox, who could have had Tatis on their team. But trades happen. They wanted to get a pitcher, and you end up getting Tatis, and he's panned out for the Padres. But still, he was in their farm system. He comes up, he produces, and you sign him. That's really a good sign for, I would say, mid-market teams, and that's what the Padres are. They're not small market, but they're not exactly, I said, maybe a Dodgers or the Yankees in that regard, or the Red Sox. But they're in between. But I think it's a good move for all parties involved, and some of these other guys. And being here in Atlanta, I've already heard some of the sports guys, and they brought it up with Ronald Acuna with his, I think, 8-year, $100 million deal that he signed last year that is going to look ridiculously below value by the time we see these deals with Tatis. And as I said, if you're going to put Tatis in that top five of baseball, it's Mike Trout, Mookie Betts. You could say Acuna talent wise is a top five guy in the league. If he puts together, now last year it was kind of off by his standards, but he could be comparable to Tatis. And then his deal looks so low compared to those guys. It's going to be very intriguing to see. Now, I don't think you can see Acuna have a holdout or demand more money, but maybe behind the scenes, after maybe in a year or two, if Acuna continues to produce at a 30-30 level MVP caliber production, they might return to the negotiation table. We'll see what happens. That's a few years from now. But good move by the Padres, signing their top guy and making it official before spring training starts. And then finally, wrapping up baseball. Tim Tebow retiring from baseball. Thank goodness. As a Mets supporter, which I am, major distraction for the past few years. Him being in the minor league system, it was a publicity stunt. I think it's good with the Mets' new ownership and new direction. They're cutting themselves from him. Look, Tebow, great college football player, had an okay run in the NFL. Let him stick to that. And this whole idea of him wanting to live a dream and we should give guys chances to pursue opportunities. No, that's bullcrap. If I'm running a major league organization, every single one of my guys in the minor leagues has to be someone capable, I think, of being a major leaguer or being an asset for me to obtain major leaguers, whether it's a trade or something along those lines. Tebow was not doing that. He was never going to make it to the major leagues at this age and at this stage of his life. Now, if he was 22 or 23 and was only away from baseball for a year or two and still maybe had some of those skills, maybe we can talk about that. But he had not played baseball in 11 years, ever since his junior year of high school, and now he's in his late 20s or early 30s, however old he is. That's not a time for him to be pursuing another dream. And don't cry for Tebow and like, oh, it's so sad. He's a millionaire. He's he's doing a college broadcasting career. Politics is not out of the question. He's married to a Miss USA or Miss Universe or whatever. Tebow's not struggling. He'll be all right. So I'm glad that he's retiring from baseball and his distraction on the sport is completely done, especially on the Mets side of things. It had to be done. So I'm very happy to see that happen. All right, let's move on to the original free kick portion of the show and things going on in Major League Soccer, specifically Atlanta United. They have loaned Fernando Mesa to Defensa y Justicia of the Argentinian Premier League. So he is on loan with that squad. He started 11 contests over all competitions for Atlanta United last year, including 13 during the MLS regular season. I think it's a move. You've seen Atlanta making a lot of moves, bringing in a lot of defenders. So if they can loan him to Defensa y Justicia, my Spanish has to get better. But he's going to the Argentinian league, so he can go there, play a little bit, and then if he plays well, maybe they'll sign him to a long-term deal as far as the Argentinian team, or he can come back to Atlanta United. I don't think this is a move that really hurts Atlanta in any major way. Their roster just continues to be under a major overhaul, which is expected after last season's disappointment. So we will continue to follow Atlanta United and what they're doing. And but they did announce that they are bringing in defender Ronald Hernandez on loan for the duration of the 2021 season from Aberdeen FC. Now, remember, Atlanta United has a working agreement or a deal with the Scottish Premier League team in Aberdeen. So they're going to bring in Ronald Hernandez from that squad. The Venezuelan has made 17 international appearances for Venezuela, and he'll be playing for the team this year. So they let one defender go on loan, and they bring one in on loan. So as I said, probably a neutral move for Atlanta, and we do know that they're going to open up the CONCACAF Champions League on April 6th. So we got that announcement a few days ago. And so now we know that their training camp probably will be in the next week or two, and we'll be keeping track of that and look forward to seeing the Five Stripes back onto the field. All right, let's move on to the technical state of Georgia athletics, and we have two exclusive interviews to play for you today on the show. First, Georgia State baseball, they opened up the season today on February 19th against West Virginia, and we were able to speak with head coach Brad Stromdahl about the start of the season, a breakdown of his roster, and how their offseason was impacted by the pandemic. So let's give a listen to Brad and his thoughts on the upcoming season for the Panthers. All right, Sports Inquirer here with Brad from Georgia State baseball team is ready to start their regular season in a few days. Brad, we're just talking about it off camera, but just reiterate, how's the team been doing this off season and having to make those adjustments with the pandemic and everything that we're dealing with?
Oh, I mean, it's going good. We're really focusing on, just us. I mean, it's been an interesting last, 15, 16 months for everybody. And we were able to get through this fall and continue to develop and grow and teach the things that we needed to teach to get us prepared for this weekend. Throughout the course of the last 3 weeks, we've just been playing each other, and I think we've had about 140 innings worth of pitching that we've had, just preparing ourselves and playing against ourselves in inter squads. And so, we're ready to play somebody else at this point in time. We're kind of sick of seeing the same people, and we're ready for competition.
Yeah, well, you mentioned 140 innings. How important is that to obviously we look at the hitters and talk about timing, but you got to build your guys' arms up to get into competition, especially with this schedule, which looks very condensed. How important is that to get those innings in for your guys to stay healthy as far as the pitching side of things?
Oh, it's really important. I mean, throughout the course of, throughout the course of like the winter break, we really have a strongly regimented program for them, and hopefully they follow that. And I think that, having the off period, everybody followed it to a T, and they were able to come in, and we were able to work our pitches up to about 75 this last weekend. And so with COVID, we were able to keep some pitchers. We have a couple of dual guys, and so we're able to increase those innings. And so we've been very fortunate. We haven't had been bit by the injury bug too much, and we've been able to really do a good job of practicing wearing masks and social distancing. And so we haven't, knock on wood, been hit too bad with the COVID bug. And so really we've been very fortunate to date. And I think that it's really important to be able to see live pitching, and the more live pitching you can see before the season starts, I think the better. And so, from that standpoint, we're ready to go, and we just kind of got to figure out what we're good at and what we need to practice, and we start that this weekend.
Before we move on to 2021 and your upcoming season, what about last year? It was your first year with the program. You're able to play a handful of contests, were unable to finish the season. What can you take from 2020 just on the field and carry it over into this year?
I mean, is really establishing our foundation, the foundation of what it is that, we had wanted to build. We went into 2020 not really knowing. We just kind of figured out, hey, listen, we got the job in July. We worked ourselves into a position where, we put a competitive team on the field. We finished 9-7 last year. And so we were very good. We beat a couple of regional teams early on. We were fortunate to sweep the first weekend. And so we were riding a really good momentum. And I think the biggest part that they understood is what our philosophy is as a coaching staff, where our direction is going, what we're trying to do, and really play team baseball and take care of the baseball, put the ball in the strike zone. And ultimately, the team concept is going to win or lose you the game. It's not going to be a single mistake or an error or a home run. It's going to be a culminary of many, many things that help you to win or lose. And so I think that foundation kind of catapults us into this year where we were able to build upon some I guess we were able to build and fill some holes that we felt like we had last year with some incoming players, whether it was junior college or whether it was a freshman or whether it was a COVID freshman transfer. We were able to plug those holes up. And I think that going into West Virginia this weekend, I think it's going to be really exciting. And then, it's a tough schedule, but I think that it's going to be exciting to see where those guys are able to go.
You mentioned the schedule. I was going to say this for later, but we'll bring it up now. You may have one of the most competitive non-conference schedules in the nation. You have nationally ranked Georgia, Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, Florida, West Virginia this weekend, as well as Clemson, Kentucky, and Tennessee, who are could be nationally ranked at some point in the year as well, all on your non-conference. I mean, that's a very hefty schedule. What led to that, and what are you kind of looking to take away from this first month of play playing all these teams?
Sure. I mean, it's a couple of factors went into that, and so about I guess November, a lot of the northern schools that normally typically come south all canceled their seasons or canceled their weekends or canceled their flights. In essence, our first month got shut down from what we had scheduled from the previous year. I mean, you kind of schedule 2 or 3 years out. And so everybody that we were playing canceled on us for due to COVID reasons and pandemic, and which is totally understandable. And so at about the same time that everybody was canceling, the conference made a decision that everybody goes to the conference tournament. And so that kind of alleviated that stress of, hey, listen, we got to make sure we have a certain number of wins. We got to make sure that, we're prepared going into conference. And so as we're talking about who to play within our staff and within our little community, we knew that the SEC and the ACC and the Power 5 schools were going to play no matter what. We also knew, because the Sun Belt played more football games than anybody else in the country, we knew that the Sun Belt is going to let us play. And so we kind of were like, okay, well, who can we play that we know we're going to play, not have to deal with a cancellation, not going to have to deal with a flight or a pandemic or anything like that. And it kind of led to this. And so fortunately for us, with where we're located in downtown Atlanta, we were able to say, hey, listen, let's just try to stay within a 4-hour radius. And the teams that are going to, play is all those teams. And so I think it sets us up really well for going into conference. We have 29 underclassmen. I think we have 17 freshmen, 17 or 18 freshmen. And so as you kind of goes back to your last question, as you come in and what do you learn from your first season? When I was at Gwinnett, we kind of did a similar thing where we figured out who the best teams were and played them. And we went to the World Series that year. And so I'm not saying that we can go to the World Series or anything right away, but it prepares us for where we want this program to go. We want this program to play for regionals and super regionals. We want to win the conference tournament. But you don't know how to win those things or how to play those games or what to do unless you've played the best teams in the country. And so being able to go to the conference tournament, no matter what, scheduling in the pandemic, we just decided to play teams that we're going to play. And we knew that the Power 5 would play. And it also gives our freshmen an understanding. So maybe their sophomore year, their junior year, their senior year, we're going to a regional at Vanderbilt, or we're going to a regional at Kentucky or Florida or wherever. And so that experience of going to those places is not going to be new for them. They're going to go, okay, we won or we lost, or I played here before. They're just 18 to 22-year-old kids just like me. And I think it gives us a chance to win later on down the road.
Let's get to on the field and your pitching staff. I see Seth Clark, Ryan Watson, Chad Treadway, all guys that led in wins and strikeouts and pitched a good amount of innings for you. Look like they're back on the team.
Yep.
How is the staff looking, and who are some other guys that you're looking to see contribute to your staff?
Well, I think that is definitely, the pitching staff is our foundation. I mean, I think that when we go into a weekend, we always talk about our strengths. Where can we capitalize on those strengths? And they are on the mound. And like you said, Watson, Clark, Treadway. We added a couple pieces. Dawson Sweat out of he's from Georgia, but he was out in Texas. And we have Cam Jones who was a really good piece last year, and he's gotten a lot better. So we have a few different pieces that go into it. Joseph Brandon. I think that our pitching staff is really, really deep throughout the course of our whole staff, from 1 to I guess 18 or 19. And so we're excited to see where they fall. And fortunately, we play 4 games versus West Virginia, then we play Georgia on a Wednesday, then we play 4 games versus Vandy. And so really, we got 9 or 10 games within the first 2 weeks. And so we're going to get to see everybody pitch. And again, that kind of goes back into the last question with just building that schedule and building the games, see who can do it. And when the lights are bright, and see who needs a little bit more work and a little bit more polish and refinement. So pitching staff is going to be there through and through. And that's going to be the foundation of our team going into the beginning of the year.
You do return the services of Ilian Morejo, the designated hitter. Well, he's listed as designated hitter for the preseason All Sun Belt Conference, but I'm sure he'll probably see the field at some point in the year as well. What about him and coming back for his 5th year, and how important was that for you to get him back on campus?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, and I think that can be said for pretty much every team across the country, is that they're going to return 1 or 2 or a handful of guys from their previous year that they weren't expecting to come back. And so, being able to plug him into the middle of the lineup and being able to throw him in left and right field or first base, he's very versatile as a position player. And so, it's something that we're very fortunate to be able to have him back. Tyler Cook is back as well on the pitching staff. He's been here now for 5 years as well. And Dalton Davies, who was he's a true two-way player. He caught a lot of games for us last year, and we've moved him to a little bit on the mound too, because he's 92, 93. And so like it just having those COVID seniors back is awesome, for sure.
Yeah, and the infield, what about Will Mize and Griffin Cheney, some guys who led in RBIs and other statistics like stolen bases. So you have some of those infielders back. What about the rest of the unit as well as far as your starters?
Yeah, no, I mean we're really good up the middle. We feel like Tanner Gallman and Kyle Hilton and Blaine Marchman behind the plate are really, really good pieces to help build within what Tanner Gallman can do. And I think that all three of them can catch at any point in time throughout the course of the year. I think that Will Mize and Cheney up the middle is a really good combination. I think that those guys can play with a lot of people across the country. And I think that we're very strong catcher, shortstop, middle infield, and then Kyle Rieselman in center field. We have Dalton Pearson in center field. We have Ponder. We have three guys that can really play center field. So our outfield is going to be able to run down a lot of baseballs. I'm excited to watch them play. And then we got Kalen Puckett and Ryan Glass. We have a transfer in from Gulf Coast with Ashby Smith, who can hit a lot of home runs. And so I think that we have a really good core of 11 or 12 people. And we were also returned Josh Smith. So it kind of goes back into that, how many kids are you bringing back that have your philosophy and understand what it is that we're trying to do, where we left off on the 2020 campaign. We're going to try to pick that up with a couple additions, and it's going to be really fun and exciting to start the season.
Yeah, and then lastly, every sport's dealt with different schedule changes and unfortunately people contracting COVID and having to maybe sit out and isolate and everything like that. How big are these first games? You mentioned West Virginia and then the Vanderbilt series as well as Georgia. Where you're going to try to get everybody on the roster that's healthy and available on the field to get a start, pitch an inning, play some defense, just to get them on the field so that they can be prepared if there are some adjustments throughout the year as far as your
Yeah,
availability.
no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's imperative that everybody sees an at bat or an inning or that just gets that first weekend out of the way. We'll probably have a Wednesday starter versus Georgia that doesn't pitch. But again, we kind of go back to you have to play this game a little differently now, because you never know if Wednesday is going to happen or the next weekend is going to happen. And so you have to play today like it's the only day that you're going to play. And so that kind of, pushes a few maybe courtesy at bats out of the way or courtesy innings sometimes to the side, where you're just trying to win today. Because you just don't know in our day and age, if one kid gets COVID, they just might shut down. So it's a happy balance for sure. But I think that it's important as a coach to get everybody into the field, get on that little box score, to have that breaking of the seal, getting themselves in each of those games this weekend.
And we thank Brad for his time and speaking with us about the team. And we also were able to speak with the softball coach at Georgia State, head coach, and Roger Kincaid. Their team returns to action on February 20th at North Carolina A&T. So we were able to speak with Roger about their start of the season, which included 2 wins over Radford and a victory over Boise State to open up their 2021 campaign. And we highlighted some of their players and what he has seen from the squad in an early portion of the year. So here is Roger Kincaid on the Panthers. Okay, this is the Marcel producer, Sports Inquirer, and we're here with Roger Kincaid, the head coach of Georgia State softball. The team had a 3-2 weekend this past weekend against some teams. Before we get to those games specifically, we discussed in our last meeting how you were anticipating the team being on the field and didn't know what to expect, but just overall impressions of the squad through the first 5 games.
Yeah, the other thing that got thrown into the mix was weather. We had some game time changes. We actually added a game on Friday to make that a doubleheader instead of a single game, and changed the game times on Saturday. So, sticking with our theme this year of, this is a plan until it's not the plan anymore. I thought the kids did a great job of adjusting to that, because as coaches and athletes, we like stability, we like schedules, we like routine. And that's probably the most thing I was proud of, is the fact that they were able to adapt to that and, not get confused, not get down. But the other thing is, we played a lot of kids. We played 18 kids over the weekend, pitched 6 pitchers over the weekend. And I think everybody did a great job that got able to participate. Saw some really, really good things out of the team. Saw a lot of things that we needed to work on, which is not unusual. That's what you want to figure out at the beginning of the year, because we want to progress through the year. We want to get better as we go through. So that's the biggest thing, is having things to work on. Started off 3-0, lost the last 2, which is kind of a bummer. I told the kids in life, you can't really choose the sequence of events. You got to create the sequence of events. So had a nice walk-off in game 3. Got to celebrate that, and then had to turn around and play, a game right after. But overall, I'd give the weekend a B, and pleased with some things, but also concerned at some things we need to work on.
Well, those first 2 wins over Radford, you got complete games from Sophie Mooney and Emily Buck. And so what was good? What do you see from them in the circle to have some pretty dominant pitching performances?
Well, when you got to play 5 games on a weekend, it really helps when you can get 2 complete games from your starters. It means you're not burning through arms early, in the weekend. But that was pretty amazing that they were able to give us complete games, because it's tough for pitchers when they first start off. They got to build into that game mode. They got to build into that stamina that it takes, to do that. And I thought both of them threw well. Had some good strikeout numbers, which is great for us. I love that. And then Emily Buck threw a 1-hitter. I mean, she had a no-hitter going into, I believe it was the 5th inning, had a no-hitter. Might have been the 6th inning, but she threw a 1-hitter. Yeah. And, that was great. She was pitching so well, we didn't even realize she had a no-hitter until she gave up a hit. So that's just one of those things that, you're just in the moment. You're creating pitches and just doing work. So it was really impressive what those 2 did in the first 2 games.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Boise State went in 7 innings. Freshman Carolyn Dede with the game-winning single in the bottom of the 7th. What about that contest and being in that type of atmosphere? You have to come back and get a run to earn a victory. What do you think the team could take away from that?
Well, I think that's a great atmosphere for us to be in. It helps confidence-wise. But first and foremost, I want to give a shout-out to Macy Banks, making her debut as a freshman in that game, starting, giving us some quality innings. And then Savannah coming in after her. Savannah's been fighting an injury a little bit, so we didn't know what we were going to get from her. But as per her usual, she comes in and throws the ball well. And we were really pleased with that. And I will share a story with you. They walked the bases loaded to get to Dede. I'm standing at third base, and I don't know. I guess I'm just crazy. I was 100% convinced she was going to hit a grand slam. 100% convinced. And I had already planned in my mind what the celebration was going to be like. I was going to let her get 3/4 of the way home, and then I was going to follow her home. I was actually going to slide into home plate. I mean, I already made So I guess thank goodness she didn't hit a home run. That allowed me to not embarrass myself or the program. But I will tell you, when I saw them celebrate on the field, I saw them do that dog pile. It just, that's why you come to the park. I mean, that's why we do this. And it was really good. And short answer to your question of my long-windedness, but I think it proved that, hey, we can get it done. Push comes to shove, we can get it done. And I got a lot of respect for that Boise team. I will tell you, they got a scary lineup, man. They got some really good pitchers. And I think by the end of the year, they will be a really, really good team in their conference. And I look forward to seeing how far they can go, because I think that's a quality win for us.
Yeah, you've got some good hitting performances. Daisy Hess, Bailey Sexton, Emily Brown, each hitting above the 400 batting average. And also Bailey Richardson, team high 6 RBIs. Are you surprised? Or not surprised, but are the hitters maybe a little bit further ahead than you expected? Maybe at this time of year, considering the long layoff and just the start of the year?
Well, yeah, and the other thing that factors in is, the weather. It's hard to hit in cold weather because the ball feels heavier, when you swing the bat. So, yeah, I was really pleased with that. I won't say that I was surprised. I was pleased. We had some really good performances up and down the lineup. I felt like Emily Brown, showed what she's capable of doing. We knew what she was capable of doing, and she's a sophomore now, and I feel like she's grown up a lot in a year and a half. And confidence wise, I think she's at a really, really good place, and she did great. Bailey Sexton did great, like you said, Daisy and Bailey Richardson. Just some timely hits when we needed it. And that's what we talk about. We talk about situational hitting, making sure you're laser focused, don't give away any at bats. The left on base numbers are something that we look at, and we still have too many of those. We need to execute better when we got runners in scoring position. But I mean, what a great opportunity for Didi to get her first college hit, her first college walk off, all in the same game. It was really cool. She had her first college RBI on a sac fly against Radford, I think. But it was really cool. It was a great thing.
Yeah, and then lastly, you're heading on the road. Well, outside of the city of Atlanta for the first time this year, you have 2 games against North Carolina A&T and against UNC Wilmington. 4 games in a condensed weekend. You mentioned some things you want to improve on and get better at. What are some of those things you want to see improvement in these next 4 contests?
Well, I want to see us, like I said, timely hitting. When we have the opportunity to put a ball in play, we got to do so. Runners at third base are really, really important, especially when you got some of your kids that are at bat that can barrel the ball up. So they got to be looking for a ball they can hit to the grass so we can tag up. Those things right there, situational hitting, runners left on base. We played pretty well on defense for the most part, being really early in the season. I was really proud of that. Went through the first, 3 games with 0 errors. So that's great. And then we kind of backslid a little bit in game 4 and 5. So we need to clean that up. I thought the pitchers did outstanding. Everybody that got a chance did great. I mean, Julia Allen got to start a game, which was great to see her do that. And then Ellie Doolittle came in and got to get her feet wet as a freshman, which that's always good to get that out of the way. So, but I'm just looking forward to a great weekend. Weather-wise, we're hoping that we're going to get better weather. I mean, you know how that is early in our season. That's always hit or miss. So we're looking forward to it. A lot of COVID things that we're having to do for travel, with roommates and with bus rides, and that's a bit of a challenge. But we have to manage that. We can't let that be something that influences our performance. So that's really my job, to make sure that we manage all that and it doesn't become a distraction for the kids.
And we thank Roger for his time and speaking with us. And as I said, if you want to see those full interviews, because we did record them on video, or hear them a little bit more as well, head to our social media platforms. As we mentioned earlier, just anywhere under Sports Inquirer, or head to the site, thesportsinquirer.net, and you will see those interviews in their full form. All right, let's wrap up today's show with the Miscellaneous Department. And 2 thoughts. The NBA All-Star Game has officially been announced for Atlanta on March 7th. We've talked about it before. I don't like this idea at all. And Mayor Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, has expressed that she does not want people coming in from out of town and fans coming in. It's because the All-Star Game, really, it's more about the activities than the actual game. The game takes place usually on Sunday evening. I remember it was a Sunday afternoon back in the 90s, back in the olden days. But it really is a full weekend of activities. And I'm just on the court alone. Usually you have that Friday is the Rising Stars game with the young players. They get their All-Star game in, or they get a match in. Saturday is all about the dunk contest, 3-point competition, little skills test, or whatever. They read all that stuff. And then Saturday and Sunday is the actual All-Star game. But it also means a lot of parties, a lot of executive events. So you have a lot of partying, even community service endeavors. A lot of those are going on, and you can't do any of that now, of course, with the pandemic. But I understand the concept of the All-Star game, and I know why the NBA now, besides the money, and we'll get to that, but the money's the obvious reason. But I know two things. One, the cause is legitimate. They want to have the All-Star game. It's in Atlanta, which is obviously a central area for HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, and they want to have an event that can raise money for the HBCUs, not only for the ones in Georgia, but throughout the country. But they want to have raise money for minority endeavors, whether it's business or philanthropy, community service, all of that stuff. So the cause is actually it's a good cause. So I think that's number one. And then two, I think they want to have an all-star game for normality because we're used to having it every year. An all-star game take place, all the stars come together. It's a fan event. We get to see LeBron James play on the same court as James Harden, or on the same team as not this year, but LeBron. Let's see if it's the West. LeBron and golly, I can't. Damian Lillard play on the same team, or Luka on the same squad, and then on the East you get to see Kyrie Irving play on the same squad as Giannis and all that stuff. So that adds excitement and intrigue to the game and seeing that. So I think they want to have the return to normality in that way. But it's all about the money, though. I mean, that's the biggest reason for it. And I've said from the beginning, if you want to do these endeavors, the NBA, just cut a check. That's all they can do. They have the money for it. And you can have press conferences. We're so, at this stage of the game, we're so used to having Zoom conferences, press conferences along those lines. If the NBA that weekend, you could not play games and still have a break, but you can have a lot of press conferences, video endeavors, open up platforms to all of these community organizations, the HBCUs that you already would have going on, just not do it virtually. I mean, we had a virtual presidential inauguration. We've had virtual everything in the past 10 months. We don't like it, but it's the reality of the way things are going on right now. So you could do something along those lines and make it positive in that way. Instead of bringing these players from all around the country, we've already seen games canceled or postponed. The Spurs have gone through it. The Wizards went through it. We've had positive tests. Jason Tatum, who I think is an all-star, I have to see the roster. He's a month later, and I was talking to my mother about this. Tatum, he's 21, 22 years old, elite athlete for the Boston Celtics. And if you could think of anyone you would think physically would be fit as an athlete, he'd be on the short list of the top ones in the world right now. He's still dealing with breathing problems a month after having the virus. He's still playing, but you say he's still dealing with that. And that's him. And everybody is different. I get all that stuff. But physically, you're going to bring all of these athletes from around the country into one arena or in one area. They're going to be interacting as basketball, and they're going to mingle, and then go back to their respective teams around the country. It's a super spreader event. And we've seen every time it's happened, from the Sturgis, the motorbike rally, or motorcycle rally. We've seen that with the insurrection. And I'm not getting political with this stuff. I'm just saying with the insurrection and all those people that were in Washington, earlier this year, and we've seen cases, rise, or people that were there and then going around the country back to their homes. Whenever you have a large gathering of people at one event, and I know the All-Star, they're going to test everybody and going to try their best, but if you bring a player from Team 1 and interact with a player from Team 2, something's bad's going to happen. I just think it's a very bad move for the league to have the game. And then in trying to put it all in one day with the 3-point contest and some of the other stuff in the pregame, the dunk contest at halftime, I'm not intrigued by this at all. I barely watched the All-Star game at this stage of my life, and this is more reason for me not to watch it at all. And I just don't like the way or direction this is going. And I would say it's 50-50 that this All-Star game takes place. I know the announcements were made officially because they have to at least get the ball rolling on that. But as I said, I think that in LeBron James, he's expressed he's not in the All-Star game mood and all of that stuff. I think it's going to be very interesting to see who shows up and who doesn't, and who finds, I don't want to say an excuse, but on a regular All-Star game, you would have situations, guys having injuries, not showing up, for whatever reason, trying to find their way out of the All-Star game. You might find an all-time record in that this year. So we'll keep track of it as we go along, but I think it's 50-50 of this game even taking place. And then finally, the Australian Open it's in the finals that take place over the next few days. Naomi Osaka facing Jennifer Brady. And as I stated on Twitter, and I watched the entire match with Osaka and with the Serena Williams. Look, Serena is an all-time great. She is on the short list of top individual athletes in the history of sports in the United States and all that stuff. The superlatives are awesome. But it's Osaka's time. Osaka's been a better player the past few years. And I think for some other people that don't really watch tennis on a consistent basis, and I'll say tennis is not, I watch the majors. I'm not watching the Montreal Open in the middle of January, or well, in the middle of June. I will admit that. I mean, I'll see the results and some highlights, but I do watch the majors, and we've seen Serena get to this point. She looks really good over into the quarterfinals and the semifinals, and then she faces either an Osaka or maybe another player, and that's where she really struggles. And you just saw in that match. And the thing about Osaka is that she hits just as hard as Serena, but yet has better movement and better versatility. And that backhand, and Serena kept hitting to her backhand, and Osaka was hitting that crossing backhand very low and sharp down the line or on the line, and was getting so many of them in. I think that, Serena's great. She's an iconic figure, but her time and Osaka just has her number too. Now, if Serena faced maybe Brady or maybe another player, we saw she did the Halep and swept her into quarters. Maybe Serena could get a win, but if Osaka's on the other side, it is just not going to be a good situation for her. But I said Osaka, she's going for another major. She's won at least one major the past 3 years. That's why I say she's been the best player in the world, the most consistent one. And she faces Jennifer Brady, another. Well, in Osaka, she's Japanese. It's a very interesting story with her because her father is a Haitian, but he's also American. Well, she was raised in the United States. Is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to go to her whole background family, but her mother's side is Japanese, and she represents them on an international level. But that's why I said I don't want. She's not American. She doesn't go by that. But she's very much entrenched in the United States. But I'll say she's gonna face another American and Jennifer Brady in the finals, which is technically not true. That's why I went into all of that. A nice run from Brady. Came into the tournament, and let's see, she was ranked came in as a 20th seed. I want to get it correct. 22nd seed of the tournament. She's made a very solid run into the finals, but you have to think it's Osaka's time. If she is able to play her game, I think Naomi has a very good shot of winning that contest. And on the men's side, we've seen Djokovic, who we saw when he played in the fourth round. He had his struggles, and it seemed like he was dealing with injuries when we played the Rennick from Canada, and we saw him. Remember that second set, he suffered like kind of I don't know if it was a hip injury or an ab injury, a side injury. He worked his way back into that match and won. But ever since then, he has been rolling in the quarters. He was able to able to beat Zverev in 4 sets, and then the semis a few days ago. Now Karashdev, the Russian, unranked coming into the tournament, or non-seeded coming into the tournament, not really an elite player, and Djokovic swept him in 3 sets in a very dominant fashion. So now he gets Medvedev in the finals. And Medvedev looking for his first Australian Open. Djokovic already has won multiple Australian championships. I think that once again, Djokovic, he sees that Nadal and Federer are stuck at 20 overall majors. I think this one will give Djokovic number 18, and he is ready to roll in it. And let's see, when is eighth and yeah, 17 Grand Slam titles right now and 8 Australian Opens. So if he wins this one, that'll give him 9 Australian Opens and 18 overall Grand Slams. So I think he sees Nadal and Federer in his sights. So he really wants to win. He always wants to win, but I think he sees an opportunity to get back in that running for most majors in history. So I think Djokovic is, and Medvedev's a hard hitter, very tough. I don't think it'll be straight sets. I think it'll be a longer match. But you have to think Djokovic is going to be the favorite. And on our next show, I'm a breakdown because I was hearing Chris Russo, Mad Dog on Mad Dog Radio, who's a big tennis fan, and he breaks it down really well. And I've had this conversation with other people. The Nadal Federer Djokovic argument, who's the best of all time, and it's very fun because each of them kind of have like their respective majors that they dominate. Djokovic has Australia. I said he's going for his 9th Australian title. Federer Wimbledon. He has a bunch of those. Nadal, excuse me, has all the French Open titles. U.S. Open, it's been a free for all between those three. They've each kind of gotten multiples of those. But you have three of maybe the top 5, 6 players of all time in men's tennis. And I'm not ranking them, but you got to put Rob Laver in there. Only man to have win Grand Slams as a professional and an amateur. You got to throw in a Pete Sampras. Some of those guys who are just all-time talents. So those are 3 of the top 5 all-timers playing at the same time in their respective primes or past primes, but they're still at a competitive level. But if Djokovic gets this one, I think you can make an interesting argument that Djokovic is the best player of all time, or at least among this trio that we've had over the past 10, 15 years. And I'll break down why I have that opinion on my next show. That's a little bit of a tease for you when we do our next show on Monday or after this weekend. But yeah, looking forward to seeing those matchups in the Australian Open and what's going to go on there. And that concludes today's show. Thanks for listening to our broadcast. As always, you can head to the mothership, to sportsinquirer.net. You can also go to our social media platforms or go to social media platforms and search us there, Sports Inquirer, all one word, and then subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. And until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.